Namaste, everyone. Welcome to the Pranic Healing Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Jason Yuan, and today we have the lovely Faryl Moore. So, Faryl is a professional pranic healer and energetic empowerment coach. She uses a combination of pranic healing and coaching to help you ease the path to embody your authentic voice and your fullest potential. Her works helps to access deep energetic shifts necessary to improve and transform physical, emotional, and mental health exponentially. Farrell specializes in elevating energetic resonance and frequency so her clients can realize the optimum wellness for holistic success. Please welcome Farrell.
Hello, hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, thank you so much, Farrell, for joining us. And you were very well recommended by many pranic healers, so I'm very happy to have you on the podcast today. And I'm very excited, Farrell, because today's podcast is focused around your work, especially with entrepreneurs. And as a fellow entrepreneur myself, I'm very selfishly looking forward to this conversation because I'm sure you can help a lot of people out, especially myself. But before we get started with that, Farrell, can you? I know I gave you a short little bio, but can you give us like a short little description about how you got into pranic healing? Because I know you've had a long history in this holistic healing space, but it sounds like once you found pranic healing, this was more of your calling. So can you just share a little bit about that with us?
Sure. Thank you all. So I'm a classically trained educator. Say that 3 times fast. Okay. And what that means is that I have a master's degree in teaching. I'm working on my PhD in kind of the educational space, but I always did healing on the side because it didn't feel like I could have a professional healing business when I was doing Reiki. So I did Reiki for about 20, I think we're at 24 years now. Nobody knew what it was when I did it. They thought I was absolutely out of my mind. They compared me to Mr. Miyagi on, the movie. So for me, it was always this other thing that I did. And then I found pranic healing, and that was 2018. And when I found pranic healing, I had heard about it prior from a fellow pranic healer, and she kept saying, "Come, like this is totally what you need to be doing." And what was interesting about that was she approached me from a space of talking about the angels. And that to me, because I was born into a Jewish family, felt really uncomfortable at first because I didn't know any better. And so when I finally took on pranic healing and went through all of Master's work and all of the classes, Inner Christianity Revealed, Inner Buddhism Revealed, Inner Kabbalah Revealed, you suddenly realize it has nothing at all to do with what we imagine that angel realm is really about. And so when I found pranic healing, I took all of my Reiki clients and I moved them immediately. As soon as I finished advanced pranic healing, I switched everybody over, and they were all blown away by the results that they were getting. And they loved what I was doing before. But having a protocol for every ailment, knowing that this is tried, true, and tested, it gave me a different level of confidence, but also my clients were able to really feel the work, not just experience the work. And so then in 2019, I had the opportunity to take it on as a full-time gig. So I have been doing pranic healing exclusively, a little side stuff here and there. But for the most part, COVID was wonderful for that because a lot of people needed healing during COVID. And I got to be part of the COVID pods, which, if you don't know, we were groups of healers, for the audience that is, groups of healers that got together and all worked the COVID protocol, different pieces of it, so that we could give the clients as much support as possible during that trying time. At the same time as COVID, people were leaving their jobs and becoming entrepreneurs. And suddenly I found myself in this amazing space of being able to support people as they left their corporate jobs and started their own businesses. And then that's kind of the niche that I just fell into.
Hmm.
Thank you,
Wow,
Master.
that's yeah, that's incredible, Farrell. I mean, to speak on your experience, right? You said you came from a background in teaching, and of
Yep.
course, with your religious background too. It's it's almost looking back, it's like it's kind of crazy how far you've come.
Yeah.
But amazing to consider all the success. And you mentioned with the pranic healing, how it's so amazing because of the protocols and the COVID was a huge opportunity to really, for many of us, to get better at not only healing but also, like you said, to a lot of us became entrepreneurs then and there, because we were having so many clients and patients to work on. So, um, thank you for sharing that story, Farrell, because it kind of paints a beautiful background of what we're going to talk about today, which is focused on entrepreneurship. Because a lot of people, as you know, it's even till this day, I feel like the customary 9 to 5 has changed and evolved so much where it's almost normal not to have a 9 to 5 anymore. So, you know, to kind of touch on entrepreneurship, in relation to pranic healing, what do you find, Farrell, is like the most common challenges people come to you, whether they're starting off, whether they're in the middle of it, whether they've been an entrepreneur many times over with many businesses. What's like the one common thing that you see that is, again, with everyone struggling to get things going, but also trying to maintain a long term business that sustains itself in the future? What do you see?
So more often than not, it starts with a worthiness issue, right? So it's the
Mm,
self-worth. When I ask my clients when they first come to me, I mean, I call them clients mostly because a lot of the work that I do is pranic psychotherapy. So when I
mm,
say patient, it makes people uncomfortable. So I've just switched to client. Um, when they come to me, one of the first questions I ask them is, "Where do you feel this in your body?" And 9 times out of 10, it is solar plexus, front solar plexus, and their heart. And they're almost never in balance, right, with each other, which is so important. But
mm,
what they also don't realize until I teach them is that their back solar plexus is also playing a huge role in what's happening, because they're not recognizing that they have so much repressed and suppressed energy from wherever they started their careers that they've never dealt with. So most of the people who have come from like a corporate or an education or kind of a very um, structured space, they have a very hard time with feeling like they need to be busy every minute of every day with some kind of task. And actually, one of the beautiful things about entrepreneurship is that you don't have to be busy every moment of every day with some kind of task, right? But they feel then that they're not doing enough. And instead of recognizing that that's actually a healthy way to work, they actually take on the mindset of, this is not healthy. I'm not doing enough. I'm going to fail. I'm never going to get through. And so all of a sudden the ajna starts to play, right? Now it's the story. Now it's all of the things that we tell ourselves about why we're good or not good at something. And so when I start to work with them, we start to play in the space of, okay, we need to first clean everything so that you're starting. We need to know your baseline. What does your chakra system look like? Because as you know, Jason, we don't all have the same size chakras. We don't all have the same, the chakras don't move the same way for everybody. Some of us have misshapen chakras, right? And so it's so important to get that understanding first and then allow the client to really speak to where they're feeling things in their body. The biggest shock that I ever get is when I say, "Hey, does your lower back hurt?" Because they never talk about their lower back. Yes, it does. It hurts. Oh my God, it hurts so bad. I can't believe I didn't mention that to you. Uh-huh. Has your instinct of stability, has your stability been a little rocked lately? Going from this very structured position to this not so structured? Oh my God, I feel like I'm off center all the time. That's why your lower back hurts. Let's clean that root chakra.
Hmm.
So I find that those are the things: solar plexus, root, heart, and ajna. Those are the places that most people have congestion, overactivity, but in the wrong ways, right? And they just need a
Right.
little guidance.
Yeah. Yeah, and I love the way that you're describing this, Farrell, because um the way that you kind of start off with the picture, like you said, a lot of people are coming from that typical 9 to 5 corporate where it's all about productivity and key performance indicators and more results. And when you become your own boss, basically, it never almost it never feels like it's enough, even though you're doing so much, right? It feels like, and I love what you go back to. It's like the sense of self worth, because at the end of the day, like you said, change your story, change your reality, as Tony Robbins says, the story that we carry, especially as you mentioned in the back solar plexus, right, our past and all of our conditionings and programming and belief systems, it's like we're trying to jump into the pool and start swimming at 100 miles an hour, but we have all these rocks that we're carrying on our backs. And it sounds like you do a lot of great psychotherapy work, which you know it all starts with those thought forms and emotions and belief systems. So so that's amazing. So it sounds like when when you're working with these clients, they're starting off, they're trying to figure things out. You try to get them back to that baseline that we talked about, right? And everyone has a different energetic baseline, and you want to make sure we clean out the junk, the things that don't serve us, so that this is our foundation, this is our baseline, which is for many people such already a huge jump forward, right? Just to
Mm-hmm. Oh,
realize
yeah.
that we don't have to carry all these things. But then moving forward, Farrell, like let's say you worked on me, right? I was
Mm-hmm.
this, I'm a person coming to you, I'm an entrepreneur. I feel like same thing. I feel like I'm not doing enough, but you helped me do the psychotherapy, and it cleaned a lot of these old programs and belief systems and seeds out of my energy body. And now we kind of have a blank canvas, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So where do we go from that point in terms of the journey that you take your clients on?
So what I do is I take my clients on a 6 month journey. And the reason that 6 months is so important is because continuity and consistency are what build up our energetic systems, right? And so if you were to ask any pranic healer, what is the one thing they do consistently? I would say it's twin hearts, meditation on twin hearts every day. If that was the only thing that you did every day, you would still increase the size and abilities that come with each of your chakras. Your mindset would be clearer. Your ability to produce would be higher, just by doing the meditation on twin hearts every day. So of course that is part of my recommendation, right? And I have a couple of different people that I do meditation on twin hearts with daily. So I do it in a group because, as Master says, if you have at least 7 people, right? It's like meditating with 100. And so every 7 on top of that, even better. Not everybody's ready for that. It's a lot of energy. So we start small. We start just the two of us. And then, I tell them there's different places that they can do it as well. So meditation on twin hearts is something that I recommend to my clients for the entire 6 months. 6 months is also important because the way that I structure my program is it takes us a month, sometimes two, depending on the person, to really get you to that baseline. Because every time I clean you and then we have a conversation, you then have to actually stay there, right? You have to stabilize in that space. And it's similar to muscle memory in that the more you do something, the more your body remembers. So, same thing with your energetic system. The second 2 months, we're really working on building up good habits for you. Things like doing meditation on twin hearts, forgiveness, the I am mantra, things of that nature, where we find what works for each person because not everybody resonates with everything. So finding the things that they will do and stick with, and watching them journal through their results, because the results have to be for them. I can feel it, but they need to experience it. And so that's the second 2 months, is really continuing to clean, continuing to work through any issues that come up, but also building resiliency within your system. And then the third 2 months is about, okay, what do you want to do now? Now that you're here, now that you feel fabulous, now that you have this plan, what's the next step? And what do we need to do to step you from here to here? What are the triggers that come up as you step from here to here? Because everybody has them. And it's when you get to the place where you feel really good and you're producing and your habits are in check and all that, and then you want to go to the next level, the first thing that happens is you come down. And you come down again because you're afraid. Like, there's a fear factor. What do you mean I'm going to do more? I'm going to do bigger? I can do more than this? And so you have to just bring to here and then go. So it's like a little bit of a cha-cha at that point. It's the 2 steps forward, 1 step back, but you're still a step ahead. And then what we do is work in a lot of mindset. A lot of, as a trigger shows up, as a fear thought form appears, as you tried something and it didn't work, doesn't mean it didn't help. It just means that isn't the way, but there's another way. And supporting them energetically through that process of rising to their next step, with the goal that when they get to that next step, the end of the 6 months, really all they need, unless there's a major like health issue or something else comes up, is a maintenance, like once a month cleanup is what I call it, right? It's like you go deep clean in your refrigerator once a month, deep clean in your system once a month, and then they're good. Right? And so it's this process of building them to the place where they can actually make their own dreams come true.
Wow. I mean, the way you describe it, it sounds like, even for 6 months, that sounds like a huge transformation. I mean, for many of us, we know, like, we're dealing with years and years, and as we know, maybe lifetimes of all these ancient seeds and negative belief systems and emotions that we're carrying on. But yeah, it's a great way that you kind of laid out that framework, Faryl, and it sounds like I need to clean my refrigerator more often. Definitely don't do it once a month. But I love what you talk about, especially the 2 steps forward and 1 step back type of concept, because especially even in medicine, right? When we're even doing things like on a physical therapy level, we want resistance, especially if a muscle is tight or sore, and in order to stretch it out more than it actually can, you apply resistance and you have the patient push against that certain muscle. When you apply that resistance, it actually helps the muscle stretch farther than if you just told the patient or client to just stretch it by itself. So that's kind of the analogy I think about when you describe, like, sometimes you will go a little bit backwards, but it's part of that resistance to help you push even higher, right? Because and I'm sure you see this, Faryl, as entrepreneurs, we think our ceiling is only so high, until you realize, oh wow, this is just the start. And I kind of wanted to kind of touch upon that, because I feel like that connects to, in the beginning of our conversation, is that self-worth aspect, right?
Yes.
That's the whole reason why we got started on this journey, is because we know that we can offer more to people than just doing a 9 to 5. But sometimes we really limit ourselves because of, everything that we talked about and how much we think we would deserve. So how do you approach clients from, again, going through your 6 month protocol, but really diving deep into like self-worth? How much can you handle now? How much can you be productive now? But how high can you set your goals in terms of reaching them? Because I find a lot of people struggle with goal setting because it's like, oh, it's too big, I can never achieve it, or it's too small, it's not motivating enough. Like, how do you find that balance, Faryl, for clients of yours?
So first of all, I love this question because this is where the magic of having the coaching piece comes into play with pranic healing. Um, so many people, especially if they're coming out of a more corporate like space, right? Or a 9 to 5 space. It doesn't have to be corporate, but 9 to 5 space. Most people are still living here, right? They live in their head. So everything is about, what is the story that I was told when I was a kid? What do my parents do? What does society think, right? There's all of this story that's happening. But yet, most entrepreneurs also have that like higher self that has a little conversation with them that says, "Wait, you're meant for more than this." Right? That's kind of generally what happens. What we have to do is get them into their body. Because until you bring this down, if we were just to talk about it from a chakra lens, right? It's like there's all these answering machine messages that are stuck up here, like waiting to come into the crown, but everything's so congested and stuck from throat to crown that the messages can't get through because there's nowhere for it to go. So by clearing all of this and getting them back into their bodies, recognizing that while the soul is in charge, it actually has to move the vehicle in order for things to happen. Action can't just happen here. It has to happen here. And by bringing things into the body and allowing you to feel through all of the emotions, all of the fear, all of that, it really does allow you to recognize who you are beyond the societal construct, right? If we all stuck, especially us pranic healers, if we stuck to the societal construct, there wouldn't be a whole lot of healers, right? Because there's already that. But with entrepreneurs, because there's so much that they have done where they were accountable to someone else, KPIs, the CEO, their manager, their director, all of those things, their self-worth is tied to being validated by somebody else. And the work that I do helps them to recognize that the only person that they are is the authority and that they are, going to get validation from is themselves, and how much better that is than relying on outside validation from somebody else. And once they feel it the first time, they crave it after that. It's like, oh, this was right. And so it's about creating a vision. I don't use the word realistic because there's no such thing. My version of realistic is not going to be the same version as someone else. It's like the word perfect. Sure. There's no such thing. So when we create a vision, it's, what do you want? If you could have anything, what is that? It could be you want $10 million in a year. Now, what I would say is, are you willing to do what it takes and become the person you want to be to make that happen? Because is it possible? Of course. But there's a lot that has to occur in order for that to happen. It's not going to just be like, oh, I wished it. Right? So that's where I go with realistic, because for me, it's more about, if you really want that, we can make that happen. Are you ready to become a completely different person than you are right now? Most people are not. And so we say, okay, how about $10 million in 5 years? Or sooner, because as we know, Jason, We never talk in definitive dates like that. We're always this or earlier because we don't want to mess with the universe. We want the universe to give us what we want in divine timing, not our timing.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. So I also teach them very basic principles of that we learn in Kriya Shakti at a very high level, but I teach them just how to ask for things in a way that is definitive, clear, and concise so that what they're asking for they can actually get back. And then explaining it's reciprocal energy. So if you want this, $10 million business in 5 years, what are you going to give so that you can receive that? How much of yourself and your time are you willing to share? Because that's a lot to receive. And if you just received a check for $10 million and didn't do anything, your system cannot handle that. And I give them the example of lottery winners. People who win the lottery tend to spend all the money really quickly and end up broke again. And it's because their system doesn't feel safe holding all of that money. It's not primed. It's not ready. And if they just left the money alone and allowed their system to catch up, they would actually be still wealthy today. So bringing energy from your head to your body is what creates safety. And you can only grow as much as you feel safe. Right? I couldn't do this. What we're doing right now, Jason, I wouldn't have been able to do 4 years ago. I didn't feel confident enough to do it 4 years ago. My system wasn't ready 4 years ago. The more we work on ourselves, the more we can do, the more we are more capable we become.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's, and thank you for explaining all that, Faryl, because I think that that's a very common problem I see in the spiritual community that tries to become entrepreneurs because, like you said, we have all these energetic voice messages in our head, and we're like an upside down triangle. So much energy up top, not enough energy below, and we don't have a solid foundation, right? We, a little thing can topple the triangle over. And I love what you said about getting back into the body and really processing your emotions, processing your fears, processing these thoughts. Because when you do that, you kind of take away the almost anxiety and fear factor, and like, it's like, oh yeah, it's actually not that bad. And it's like, and as a plus, it's like, oh yeah, I think I'm worth that. I think I can do that, right? And you mentioned these realistic visions. For someone like myself, even starting this podcast, I was like, I don't know if I can do this. It's kind of a big deal, and like, I'm not a great interviewer, and I don't know how to talk to people. I'm an introvert. So, but like your story too, 4 years ago, as with everything, as we know in pranic healing, evolution implies lots of mistakes, but eventually we all evolve, right? And that's the one universal law, is that there's constant change. So you want pick the direction, right? You want to be a positive or you want to be negative. But I love how you answered my question about self-worth and setting goals, is because you mentioned a really big issue is people coming from 9 to 5. Your validation of your worth is tied to something else outside of your self-worth, outside of your own view of your body, your emotions, your thoughts, and your direction in life. And I feel like that's what a lot of people are struggling with. And it sounds like with your amazing program, you're helping them untangle these knots and release them, and helps them again paint that broader, clearer picture of what they want and how to get there. So that's amazing, Faryl. And to kind of continue, this conversation, because I know we kind of spoke in a couple of parts of this. And again, you mentioned, again, first part is all about cleansing, right? Purification, getting rid of the old stuff that doesn't work out, setting the foundation, blank slate. Second part, it's all about um, taking the
Resiliency.
actions,
Yeah.
resiliency, getting, taking steps towards your goal. And then the third part sounded more like maintenance, right? Just kind of getting, once you're there, of course,
Right.
taking
So the
care of
third part is
yourself, getting
getting
things.
to your higher level, right?
Yeah.
And then it's after that is maintenance. Go ahead.
After that, it's maintenance. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Third part is getting to that higher
Right.
level. And then post is maintenance once a month.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, for a lot of people, I find that they can get to the purification part,
Yeah.
because it's as easy as doing twin hearts every day.
That's right.
Um, the part where you start taking steps and actions and goal to get towards your goals, I find out where a lot of people tend to slip up, just because, of course, if there's not a coach like yourself watching over
Right.
people, you can go in a million directions and feel like you're not yet going anywhere. So,
Hmm.
how do you help those people that, okay, we have our blank slate, we cleaned up, but it seems like every action we take, it's not getting us as far as we want to, or it might steer us in a little bit of the wrong direction, and we constantly have to redirect. How do you help clients like that? Because I think that that comes from the perspective in my head, again, being very spiritual. We have a big crown, you know
Hmm.
big spiritual connection, but getting grounded in the body tends to be a challenge for a lot of us.
So there's a couple of things I do. The first thing that I do is I remind them, please do not compare yourself to anyone else, which is really challenging. Like it actually requires action on a daily basis to say, that's their journey, this is mine. Because what happens is people think that the journey of entrepreneurship is a straight line going up. And what I show them is that it looks more like a heart rate monitor that goes like this, but turned on an angle. And the reason that that's important is, and I actually have them mark as they go on that heart rate monitor.
Oh
Like,
wow.
yeah, I have them
Yeah.
draw one. And this is why this is so important, because I don't care if it's Tony Robbins or I don't know, someone else super successful like Oprah Winfrey. Their journey has never been a straight line. They have failed as many times as they succeeded. And it's important for you to know that the trajectory is like this. But what's important also to know is that regardless, it's always going up.
Hmm.
It's not a straight line linearly. It's a heart rate like this, up and down and up and down and up and down. How wide those are, it depends on your journey. So what I do is I have them start with, okay, this is where I am and whatever that is. Maybe it's just started my business. And then they go to, oh, I got 2 clients. So they put like a 2 clients at the top over here. Oh, 1 client fell off. Okay. But then 3 more people joined and I started a group. I'm just making this up, but right. So that they're actually charting their course for a period of time so that they can actually see it. Because what happens so often is that we forget the very recent history of how far we've come. And so if you don't see it, you won't believe it. I can tell my client, look, you've done this group program, you've added this person, you have this new, you feel great, you're having, a wonderful relationship. And they'll be like, uh-huh. But when they see it, it really impacts them in a totally different way. So that's the first thing. The second thing is I actually teach them to ground, because we have lots of ideas, we have all these things we want to do, we're all up in here, this is amazing, we're using the throat to create, all this stuff is happening, but yet you almost feel directionless, like you said. And so it's important that if they can get outside and physically ground, shoes off, Now, a lot of people live in the winter, right? Where it's cold. I don't. I live in Florida. It's really easy for me to get outside every day. But for people who live in places where they can't, I will tell them, when you are outside, take your hand out of your glove and put it on a tree. I have learned through trial and error that trees are the ultimate source of prana. And here is why. They grow in or up from the earth, okay, through the air, using our air, oxygen, to grow, and the sun to grow. They literally embody the three places that good, clean prana comes from. They are a living embodiment of that. So if you can't put your feet in the ground, just go put your hands around a tree. You can hug a tree, you can lean against a tree, but even if it's just for a few minutes, just hold on to the limb of a tree and it will exchange its prana with you. You're also at that point getting the sun because you're outside. So you're automatically getting multiple things happening to you to ground yourself to the earth. And then the last thing that I tell them, when I do healing, I have a couple things that are playing in the background. Okay. One is Twin Hearts, unless there's a reason I can't. And then the other is I use sound at 432 hertz. In different, sometimes it's music, sometimes it's just binaural beats, but 432 is the earth's frequency. And so if you need to be grounded, listening to the earth's frequency will ground you, along with a whole bunch of other crystals and things that you can do. But I teach people to find those spaces for themselves. What will work for you? Do you need to go take a walk outside listening to 432? Right? Touching a tree, putting your feet in the grass. And then, of course, last but not least, if you're having a really hard time, soaking your feet in salt water. Because as we know, salt water disintegrates, right? And if you can get to the beach, great. But if you can't, and you're really struggling and you can't really stop your day, soak your feet in salt water. It will pull all of that disempowering energy, is how I would like to describe that, out and down through your feet. And it really helps to keep you focused and energized in one direction, right? Because, the virtues, we want to make sure that people have, constancy of aim and effort as much as possible, even though they haven't necessarily gone through the virtues, right? We're doing it with them, or I'm doing it with them. So that's a lot of how I get people to ground. If people have multiple directions, because that was the other thing that you said, where people sometimes have more than one direction that they're trying to go. One of the things that I love to do, and this is a mindset thing, is called the side by side. And so it's taking a piece of paper, making a T. What my mind says goes on one side. It's all the things that are going through your mind, right? On the other side is, but what I say. This works with disempowering beliefs. This works with too much stuff going on. This works with, I don't know which direction to go, because you're getting it out of your head and onto paper. And I know that seems like a really simple thing, but the sheer act of getting it out of your head opens up space for you to hear your divine voice telling you this is not the right direction, or this is the right direction. And then you can see it on paper and go, oh, I was worried about the grocery shopping that I was trying to do while I was trying to think about which direction to go. And I got so confused and it all got convoluted. And this just helps you focus in and hone in on what's really being brought to bear in your mind. And then we disintegrate that, right? Then I energize what they decide they want to do. That's part of my job. And then they go burn that piece of paper when they're done. disintegrate it. Yep.
Hmm.
And it really
Wow.
does provide,
Excellent.
it provides that grounding, right? They're using elements, earth, air, fire, water, to ground.
Yeah. That's really amazing, and thank you for kind of grounding those examples, Farrell, because again, I think that's the beauty about pranic healing is that it's so universal. The concepts are so simple,
Mm-hmm.
yet it can be applied in so many um, amazing ways in everyday life. And I love the examples of you saying like, it's like the heartbeat, right? And
Uh-huh.
no journey is a linear line, and that's why you can't compare people because everyone has a different heartbeat, everyone has a
Correct.
different way of getting to the top, um, and with that, with all the amazing ways that you described, right? Grounding your feet in the ground, hugging a tree, sea salt in your foot, to really bring us back into our body. And it helps, as we know, of course, especially when you work out too, you move the energy of the basic chakra,
That's
which
right.
the basic chakra is to help us to be productive, get work done, and is also a reflection of our physical state of health. So I love that connection, and especially with the elements that you talked about, because that's what pranic healing is, right? We use the energy all around us, this universal life force energy in its different forms, to help us achieve and accomplish our calling and our purpose, and to live a fulfilling life. And I think that's exactly what you're doing with all of your clients and your amazing program. So thank you so much for kind of taking us through that entire gamut, Farrell. It's been really inspiring and definitely gave me a lot of ideas besides cleaning out my fridge, of course, um, which will get done soon. But for the rest of the audience, Farrell, because I know you gave a lot of many helpful tips on so many different areas. What is like one last parting advice you would give to someone that you just met on the street and they're curious about entrepreneurship, but they have a lot of the fears and anxieties that we spoke about today? What's like one best tip that you would tell them?
So it's interesting. I would remind them to disconnect themselves on a daily basis, because what most people don't realize is that we carry other people's energy with us if we don't do the simple task of just disconnect, disconnect. And some people go all the way around to the spleen. I just use my other hand. It's just easier for me, my body. But you want to make sure you get your spleen in there. And you do it front and back, as you know, because we have chakras in the front and the back. I find that most people have no idea why they're exhausted. Like day one of entrepreneurship, they have like 2 meetings and they're like, "Oh my god, I'm so tired, I can't function." It's because they're carrying all of that, and they're still carrying it from when they were where they were before. And so disconnecting, I tell people, like, when you go to the bathroom during your day, just right, or after each client, I do it all the time. Um, and then the last thing that I will do for somebody who is really just starting out is send them super brain yoga,
Hmm.
because super brain yoga works the root chakra, as you know, works the crown chakra, as you know. But there's so much focus that comes from that practice that people like buy things to get that focused, right? Like they buy like little shots of things and energy shots and all these supplements, when it's as simple as super brain yoga, um, to really allow the system to integrate energy throughout the day,
Hmm.
right? So it depends on the person I'm meeting, which of those two things I give, or if I give both. But those are my recommendations for people just on a basic level.
And you just reminded me, Farrell. I got to I have to do more super brain too. Part of my practice, as we know, in pranic healing, we also have a arhatic yoga practice, which there's more to it. But just reminds me of, even as healers in different stages and entrepreneurs in different stages, we always go back to the basics. And I think you you summarize so beautifully all the things that we can do. Again, disconnecting and doing basic exercises, super brain really helps
Yeah,
us, get back into our body. And
it
as an
does.
entrepreneur, that's very important. So thank you so much, Farrell. It's been a really an amazing conversation, and I've learned so much from your work and from the amazing program that you've described. And I will leave links below to all of Farrell's information for anyone in the audience that is interested in working with Farrell. Again, she was highly recommended by many prana healers, so I'm sure you'll be in great hands when you do work with her. But yeah, well, thank you so much again, Farrell. It's again so lovely to speak with you on a topic that we resonate on such a deep level, and especially in pranic healing. And yes, so and again, for everyone looking for Farrell's information, we will link that all down below in the show notes. So thank you so much, Farrell. Atma Namaste, everyone. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Pranic Healing Podcast, and we hope to see you in the next one. Take care.